This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It is not medical advice. Please consult a qualified healthcare professional before making any health or lifestyle changes. Welcome to the Happy Healthy Her podcast, your go-to space for real talk, inspiration, and laughter as we navigate life as a woman. Let's dive in.
Welcome back to the Happy Healthy Her podcast, the space where we empower, engage, educate, and inspire women in midlife and beyond. Hi, I'm Cynthia Penner, a menopause health coach and author of the Menopause Map book series, and I guide women through the wonderful, sometimes wild world of menopause. My focus is helping women navigate this season of life with confidence, through the knowledge of what the heck is going on in her body and hormones. And of course, I'm here with my two wonderful co-hosts and friends, Tracey and Lorraine. Ladies, how are we doing today? Tracey?
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much, Cynthia. Hi, I'm Tracey Male, a health empowerment coach here to help you eat better, move smarter, and reduce your chronic pain and fibromyalgia symptoms. So excited to speak with our guest today. This is going to be a cool conversation.
Awesome. Lorraine?
Agreed. Hello, I'm Lorraine Kihm, an empowerment and mindset coach, guiding women to live authentically through self-discovery and self-healing. Welcome, Russell. Looking forward to hearing from you on this topic today.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. So we have such a fascinating conversation ahead today, one that taps into the incredible potential of the human brain and the power of learning in new ways. We're thrilled to welcome Russell Van Brocklen, an educator and researcher who has dedicated over a decade to helping students with dyslexia not only overcome their struggles, but discover their unique superpower. Russell's groundbreaking work, The Writing Method, combines cutting-edge brain research with practical writing strategies, leading to incredible results. His students have shown improvements of up to 7 to 8 grade levels in a single academic year. We're so excited to dive into this conversation today. So, Russell, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start at the beginning. Can you tell our listeners a little about your journey and what led you to dedicate your career to working with students who have dyslexia?
Well, this was the absolutely last thing I was supposed to be doing with my life. I was supposed to end up being a bureaucrat in the New York State government. It was the late 90s. I wanted to know how laws were created near the end of college. I didn't want to have some course. I wanted to know. So I had this radical idea of signing up for the New York State Assembly internship program. So I was accepted, and I show up and I say, here's my neuropsychological evaluation. I have a first grade reading and writing level. And the director said, this is not going to work. So he went to the speaker, they got a bunch of their senior people together, and they said, we're going to take you out of the legislative office building and place you in the Capitol with the Majority Leaders Program and Counsel's office, because there's 3 administrative assistants that could take my first grade reading, my first grade writing level, which was horrendous, and turn it into something that I could turn in every week. And it also ran the assembly day to day. So I was like, okay, great internship for the academic portion. I had to do a major research project. Everybody else wrote like a 30-page research paper. Standard accommodation back then for me was to give a multi-hour research presentation and a long Q&A session. Well, they sent back a recommendation of 15 credits of A- to the political science department at the State University of New York in Buffalo. Now remember, this is part of the New York State legislature. They made these accommodations. The political science department didn't like those accommodations. So they said, instead of 15 credits of A-, here's your 15 credits of F.
Oh,
Yeah. Speak about a gut punch. So after college, I said, I am done with the discrimination. So I asked my other professors, I said, where do I go to force myself to learn to read and write so that I can help other dyslexics? And they kind of joked and said law school. So seriously, I went and signed up to law school. Specifically, I found a dyslexic professor called Professor Warner. So I go into law school. It's the second day of contracts, and he calls on me. They use something called the Socratic method. Now, if you're not familiar with it, there's a famous movie about it from the 70s called The Paper Chase. Essentially, what the professor does is they keep asking you questions when you can't answer them to embarrass you so you can adapt as quickly as possible. He calls on me, and my classmates go, oh, next victim. That didn't happen to me. What I found out later is that once dyslexics go into grad school, we own the place from day one or soon thereafter. And I mean, we dominate it. So he calls on me. I answer. He calls on me. We go back and forth a few more times. It's like, wait, I'm not putting this kid down. So then he starts getting a little snarky. I get a little snarky back. Within a minute or so, I'm leaning forward, yelling at him. He's leaning forward, yelling at me. This happens in law school. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. He says, Russell, puts his hands up. Russell, I'm sorry. We have to move on. In the interest of time, I have to move on to the next case. You couldn't be any more correct. My classmates who graduated decades later, they still say they couldn't do that. I learned to read within a month, writing in a couple of years. Then I was eventually funded by the New York State government, specifically the Senate, for a multi-year study at the Averill Park Central School District right outside of Albany. I wanted to know what I could do with the ideal. Students that were like me in high school. So they're highly motivated, highly intelligent, college-bound, excellent family support. One class period a day for the school year, they increased their writing from the middle school level to average range of entering graduate school students. Not college, graduate school. So then they all went on to college. They all graduated GPAs of 2.5 to 3.6. Cost to New York State taxpayers less than $900 a kid. That was 20 years ago. So that's how I got started.
Yep. That is actually very inspiring, Russell. I'm very proud of you for the conversation you had with your professor. That was amazing. So many of our listeners are parents or grandparents who may have had a child struggling with reading or writing, or perhaps they themselves face challenges growing up that were never diagnosed. For me personally, 2 of my 4 sons have dyslexia. And so I ended up making the decision to homeschool them. I'm a phonetic learner. I was an A student in school, learned to read and write easily. I learned that a dyslexic student learns kinesthetically, hands-on, and you're right, highly motivated, highly intelligent. Once they had special helps in place, my 2 sons that were dyslexic, they actually both graduated on the honor roll because highly motivated, highly intelligent. And even though they felt like they had to work harder than their 2 brothers that were phonetic learners, it helped them be adults. Like it just did. So I was blessed that I got to be a stay-at-home mom where I could do this, but there are so many parents that cannot. So how do you help people reframe dyslexia as a superpower, which I believe already, rather than a limitation?
Okay. First of all, we need to understand what the science is. So I'm about to show you what the real science is with dyslexia. Again, this is the top book, Overcoming Dyslexia by Sally Shaywitz, 2nd edition. That's dyslexia. Okay. So do you see how the back part of your brain has this massive neuroactivity and mine simply got almost nothing going on?
Yeah.
See how the front part of my brain's about 2.5 times overactive?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So what I did with the initial program is I used the graduate records exam analytical writing assessment. Why that? Because according to Yale, the front part of our brain is articulation followed by word analysis. Analytical articulation, I found about the same thing. But when I tried to bring this down to normal kids, it completely didn't work. So what I had to do is I had to go back to the front part of the brain and I had to flip it over to word analysis followed by articulation. Now, let me give you an example of just how successful this 3-step model I'm going to give you is. Last December, December 27th, I met Kimberly. Kimberly was homeschooling her son, Reed. She taught his 4 brothers and sisters how to read really well using traditional methods, but he was a grade and a half level behind. She just spent $700 to the state of Ohio to test him. And if he were to go into public school for special ed for the rest of the school year, he was supposed to increase by 2 to 2.5 points.
Yeah.
Didn't happen. he increased by 20 points. Okay. So he went from the 4th to 11th percentile with reading and writing to the 65th percentile. Kimberly only worked with him for an hour and a half a week. I worked with her for a half an hour a week. Most parents do 10 to 15 minutes a night. Why is this so important? Because if Reed went, his friends told him last summer they wanted him in public school because they wanted him for social reasons. If that was January, he would have been placed in special ed and he would have been away from his friends. Very, very unhappy kid. Now, because his mother did what every mother dreams of, he went into 6th grade, into normal classes, and he's doing just fine. All right. And this is something mom did at home in less than 6 months. She did it faster than those top private dyslexic schools because what they're using hasn't changed much since the 1950s. All right. So what I'd like to do is to explain to you how this is done. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. So I want you to think back with your sons. Do you remember, were they ever writing essentially a bunch of randomly placed misspelled words at the beginning?
A lot, like, absolutely. Unless he could
Okay.
visualize it, like the word tree, he could visualize what a tree looks like, so he memorized TREE. But the word there's no picture in his mind for it, so he could not get that word.
What if I told you I could show you how to do this easily in the next few minutes?
I would have wished I met you 30 years ago.
30 years
Seriously.
ago, I didn't know what I was doing.
I didn't either. I had someone come in and I paid her to teach me how to teach him. And even though he did go to the honor roll, it was hard sludging for me. Like it was, yeah. Where were you, Russell, 30 years ago? But yes, please.
30 years ago, I was in
teach us.
college. I was in college with a 1st grade reading and writing ability, not knowing any of this.
Oh.
Okay. So here's
tell
how
us.
we do it. What we're going to do, let's just pick one of your sons, change their name to protect their identity. What's his name?
Steve.
Steve. When Steve was 8, what was his favorite thing to do? What did he really love to do?
Video games.
I'm banning video games from boys. It's nothing but a problem. Give me something else.
Oh, okay. What would be else? Jumping on the trampoline.
Jumping on the trampoline. Okay. So what we have is we're going to have him type out on a laptop computer. Definitely not handwriting, not an iPad, not an iPhone. Has to be a real keyboard. Hero +, what are we talking about? Then we're going to replace hero with Steve. +, what are we talking about? We're going to replace what are we talking about? List of 10 things he likes, 10 things he hates. First thing he likes is jumping on the trampoline. Steve +, jumping on the trampoline. See how we got there?
Yep.
Okay, now I'm going to give you an epiphany about what dyslexia really is. I'm going to try to fool you by asking you the simplest questions you've ever been asked. If you follow them exactly, it'll work. If not, it doesn't. Do you think I'll be able to fool you with the simplest questions ever?
Yes.
Well, the way you say it now, I do.
Okay, well, most of the teachers mess this up. So here we are.
Okay.
We have Steve + jumping on the trampoline. We have to replace the + with a word. Here's my question. Does Steve like or dislike jumping on the trampoline?
He likes.
Replace the + with that. What's the word? What's the sentence?
Steve likes jumping on the trampoline.
But that's not what I asked. Do you see where you messed up? Or are you totally confused?
I didn't see. You say that again.
Yeah.
You got me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to ask the question again. Does
Okay.
Steve like or dislike jumping on the trampoline?
He
What's your
likes.
answer? What's that?
Likes.
Very good. You got it. Now, retell me what the sentence is.
Steve likes jumping on the trampoline.
There you messed it up again.
Ah.
Do I have you totally confused?
Yep.
You do.
Are you
Yeah.
ready for the epiphany?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
I
did you
asked
ladies get it first? Let's just ask. Tracy and Lorraine, did you get it?
No.
Not at all.
Okay,
Not
let's
at all.
go.
Okay. Now you're going to be going, I can't believe that. So here's your epiphany on dyslexia. I asked, does Steve like or dislike? Steve would have said like because that's what I asked him. What you did is what virtually every educated person does is you added the S to make it
Yes.
grammatically correct.
Yeah.
Let's go back to Steve. This is typically done with the back part of the brain, and we got just about nothing going on back there.
So
Okay.
would,
Steve
yeah.
doesn't know how to add that S.
Yes.
So we have to figure out how to get a dyslexic to add an S. Make sense now?
Yep. So I should have said
Okay.
Steve like jumping on the trampoline.
Right. Because that's exactly because you are so programmed to get this thing corrected. You're educated. Steve doesn't, and this is where the frustration comes in. So so if we're going to try to use the back part of the brain, we're going to use them. If you're millionaires, a Orton Gillingham multi-sensory structured language approach, seeing, touching, hearing, all of this stuff that hasn't changed much since the 1950s. All right, and it works, but it's slow as heck. It would take you $11,000 in 2 years to learn how to do this. And it'll take you forever to work with your kid to get it there. But that's what the wealthy use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some modern science. I'm going to have this really, really weird idea. There's the front part of the brain again, 2.5 times overactive. I'm going to use that. I'm going to do word analysis. So I'm going to ask Steve to read what he wrote out loud. Steve, like jumping on the trampoline. I'll say, Steve, does that sound generally correct? And Steve's going to go, no. I'm going to go, fix it. Steve likes jumping on the trampoline. We try that. We have him do that 20 times with 10 likes, 20 times with 10 dislikes. Okay? Because it needs a lot of repetition. Do you see how like and dislike is a simple form of word analysis?
Yeah.
I'm shifting it from the back brain to the front of the brain where we got 2.5 times the neuroactivity. Now, we're going to go because, reason one. Can you see after because it's a form of articulation?
Yes.
Okay. So we're doing word analysis and articulation in the front part of the brain. Okay. Give me a simple reason why Steve would like jumping on the trampoline, assuming he's 8.
Because he's outside and he's not having to sit at a
Because he's
desk.
outside. Okay.
Yeah.
Steve likes jumping on the trampoline because he's outside. Now, for moms of dyslexic students, you got a whole mess of misspelled words there. Can you tell the parents how painful it was to get Steve to spell all those words correctly?
Oh, it was, yeah. Chalk on it, like nails on a chalkboard. Yeah, it
What
was.
if I told you it's so simple to do?
Again,
Okay.
we're here 30 years ago.
Because when I did my original program, the students went from disgusting spelling and grammar. That's what the senior professor said, to clean at the graduate school level. And the teacher said, I didn't spend much time on spelling and grammar. It's self-corrected. Here's how we get this to self-correct. You're going to tell Steve to drop the period. Now, unless if there's a major, and I mean major grammatical error, and I mean major, okay? Don't have him retype because of the grammar. But if there's a misspelled word, he has to retype the whole thing. All right. And so Steve's going to sit there and go, I'm not going to make that mistake. And he makes it again and again and again, somewhere between 3 and 13 times. As he gets to number 9 through 13, he's concentrating so incredibly hard. Each time he's concentrating harder. But 9 to 13 times he's concentrating so hard the sweat can start coming off his forehead. It's that intense. And eventually he'll get it right. All right. Then you practice 20 times, 10 likes, 10 dislikes. If he makes a mistake in number 17, restart over from the beginning again until it's all correct. Then reason 1 and reason 2, then reason 1, reason 2, and reason 3. Now, if your kid's writing randomly placed misspelled words, that's generally kindergarten, beginning first grade level. Once they get done with this, it's end of second, beginning third grade level. They just jumped a year and a half, 2 years in writing. If we're talking about a fifth grade kid, like Reed, takes about 2 to 6 weeks. If you're talking about a younger kid, like in third grade, it could take the semester. Yes, my material is different. The older the kid is, the quicker they pick it up. All right. But that's how simple this is.
Wow.
All right. Now, that's the bottom part of what I did. That's step number 3. I couldn't get these kids to do any work. Nothing. And I was like, how the heck do I get normal kids to work? Then I remembered what my professor said. They own grad school from day one. Why? Because it's in their speciality, their area of extreme interest and ability. All right. So when I do this privately, I will give this book to 10-year-olds. Walt Disney's biography, The Triumph of the American Imagination, all 1,000 pages of it. And these kids will do this at 10 when they're reading like they're in second grade. People ask, why do I torture the kids like that? Have any of you ever brought your kids to Disney World?
Grandbabies.
Grandbabies. You walk into the Magic Kingdom. Did they feel the Disney magic?
Yeah, because they were girls. They did.
Okay. The girl I'm going to tell you about was 10 when I did that. Why was she so eager? I said, because if parents said, well, once you can learn to read, we'll take you on a Disney World vacation. All right. And she said she wanted to know the Disney magic, which is 2 universal things. So I pointed her. I said, you go into Disney World, Magic Kingdom. That's Main Street, USA. That's Marceline, Missouri, where Walt was between 5 and 10, where he tried to spend the rest of his life to get back there. I said, there's 2 universal things. The first one, real easy to find. The second one, so hard. 2 years later, the girl is reading this entire book. She is now multiple grade levels ahead. Well, because she's in 7th grade and she's reading like a high school junior or senior. Goes to her mom and says, Mom, I ask her, Mom, what's the second universal thing? Mom has a master's degree. She can't find it. Her 12-year-old daughter says, Mom, it's right there. And her mom's like, I can't believe I missed it. I went through that so many times. I said, ma'am, your 12-year-old daughter in this moment can comprehend better than you can. And you have a master's degree. Have I done my job? Okay. So the amount of work they have to do is tremendous. So if you're in their speciality, it works. You step outside, it doesn't. Just to show you how powerful this is, if I'm going to get one thing across to you, it's during the intervention period you have to be in the speciality. Once they're back in grade school, grade level and above, like Reed, you can put them back in the normal classes and they'll be fine. All right, so here is the most successful kid I ever taught. I never saw this before. I will never see this again. Casey was interested in this book, The Rise of Theodore Roosevelt, all 900 pages, 10th grade to first year college level. Casey was in 5th grade, 10 years old, turned 11 over the summer, and she was reading at the 2nd grade level. She says, I want to do reading first. I said, I can tell you how to do it. You're not going to do it. So I modified one of my approaches, and she's up in her room 2 to 3 hours a night, 6, 7 nights a week, all day on summertime. 6 months later, she's in school. Her parents call home after an episode in silent reading, said, I thought your daughter was dyslexic. I thought she was about the worst reader in her class. She's ahead of any of her classmates by grade levels. What's going on? Her mom called me. I said, what do you think she's been doing in her room? I spoke with her 15 minutes a week because that's what her parents could afford. She was up there hours a night. She jumped 8 grade levels in 6 months on her own at 10/11. That's how powerful this is. But what do our school systems do? They do the exact opposite. Do you remember in high school and middle school, you did like 5, 10 books a year? I pulled Casey and I gave her this. I gave her Walt Disney. She hated it. I wanted to see the super motivated kid of the year. What would happen when I gave her a book she hated? her motivation's down by at least 50%. Normal kids are down by 80. So now you wonder why nothing's going on. You're down probably 75, 80% with a typical student. Next, that's number one. Number two, we cannot ask these kids to learn from the general to the specific, which is how our schools teach. Because if we ask a dyslexic student, what effect did Martin Luther King's famous "I Have a Dream" speech have on the American 1960 civil rights movement? For us, it's like grabbing fog. There's nothing we can do. Can't or do anything with it. What my professor said is we have to learn from the specific to the general. What personally compelled Martin Luther King to want to give his famous speech? Because we can find that specific information. That answer gives us a question, which we answer, which gives us a question, which we answer. Here's the key point. It forces the brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. So if we ask a dyslexic, in your speciality, in your area of extreme interest and abilities, do you have ideas flying around your head at light speed, but with little to no organization? They're going to say yes. So then I say, what we have to do is to force the brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. So what's the secret to teaching dyslexics and ADD and ADHD? Focus on the speciality during the intervention period. Teach them from the specific to the general, and then word analysis followed by articulation. And then Kimberly was literally increasing Reed's learning pace by 7 times plus, faster than what the school system could do.
Wow.
Very cool.
And that's the basics.
Mhm.
Okay, so that is a powerful start. Like, I think you almost took us through all of our show notes in like
Yeah.
your explanation. So I loved also how that you described, like, dyslexia is not a flaw. And I remember that with my son, like how that they were trying to say that he had a learning disability. And I remember that I brought someone in and she said it was a learning difference. It's about how they're wired different. Like you said, if you see the brain picture, the front is bigger, the back is missing, right? So you want to try to grab the information to the front. A different way that the brain processes information can lead to exceptional creativity and problem solving. So Russell, your method, the writing method, is based on research from Overcoming Dyslexia by Sally Shaywitz and
Yeah.
Strategies for Struggling Writers by James Collins. Can you break down to our listeners how these two sources of research came together? Like how, like I know that Sally's book was the #1 book on dyslexia, but how did those two come together for you to create your method?
Well, first of all, I need to let you know what I'm telling you. I'm not giving you platitudes. I'm saying this is how the brain works. Here's the science, and here's what I actually did. And here's what Kimberly did, an actual mom, not some school teacher with 6 years of education and a decade of experience. This is what a mom did. Okay. So how did this come together? Well, I had an interesting experience when I talked to the New York State Senate. I was dealing with traditional Republicans, and their Democrats like to start with a bill. Traditional Republicans, like they wanted to come from a school system. So they want their school districts to come to them and say, we want this. But then they also want support from the academics and the state education department. So I went over to the New York State Education Department. And I said, you know what? The majority leader of the state Senate sent me over here. We're looking to do an educational program. They're like, how do we get rid of this kid? I said, oh, okay. Where is this out of? I said, oh, Buffalo. Oh, we're our largest university center and our largest colleges in the system. I said, yeah. They said, okay, we want a SUNY distinguished professor in psychology to evaluate this and to recommend it, or you're done. I said, oh, okay. I thought there'd be a bunch of them. That's their highest rank. Go out there. There's 2. Just so happens the one who gave me an evaluation before I did the internship was a distinguished professor.
Oh,
I said,
nice.
oh, okay. She said yes. So she evaluated me and she said, yeah, I did 20 hours with him. He can go from first grade to grad level, above average grad level, and back down again. He's turning on his system, turning it off. He's going from a dysfunctional area of the brain to a functional area. Here's a 5-page report. Now the education department's like, okay, go and set this up get this approved by a senior professor. That'll get rid of him. So there was only one professor that was really out there, Professor James Collins. He got $1.5 million funding from his research from the federal government on this. And I said, okay, Dr. Collins, I'm going to take your work from mild dyslexia to severe dyslexia. And how long do you think it took me to get his approval? I was told it was going to take years.
Quickly.
Months?
I'm dyslexic. Took less than 2 weeks.
Wow.
I didn't have more than 2 weeks. There's a university-wide competition. So I connected there and I got $15,000 from the university to get it tested out. Then the book came out from Dr. Shaywitz and I got it immediately, because it's Yale. And I was like, let's take a look at that again. Oh, back part of the brain, nothing's going on there. My entire field is there trying to make that work on that. I was like, the front part of the brain. Why don't we give Michael Jordan a basketball instead of a hockey stick? Or if you really want to be cruel, why don't we give him a basketball instead of a baseball bat? That's really being nice to Michael. All right. He could play at the professional level in baseball, but in basketball, he dominated. He's probably the best player who ever lived. All right. Let's focus on our strengths, not so much our weaknesses. And so that's how I kind of put them together.
Wow. And so
Interesting.
why were they trying to block you? Like when you went to them to say, hey, we need to do this, why were they trying to get rid of the kid?
Well, I'm coming there from the majority leader's office of the state Senate. This is back then it was 3 men in a room, the speaker, the majority leader, and the governor. They decided everything, and then the other committees would pass it. I am essentially saying I'm having one of the 3 power leaders coming in and sticking their nose into their business. They don't like change. All right. And then when I did present these results, I thought I did something amazing. I thought I was done. I was wrong. I came back and they asked me, does this work for normal kids? I said, no. It took me at least a decade to figure out what the heck to do with normal kids. And it's kind of what we discussed. Then the professors came to me and they said, you have some of your students scored in the 70th percentile of entering graduate students. They said, we don't care. We want the craft of research. And I was like, what the heck's the craft of research? Oh, it's a book on to teach PhD students to write research papers. And now, you want me to teach this? Yes, we want the kids to master this material before they leave high school. And I was like, okay. So what it is it's context, problem, solution. So what I did with Read is we extended that. I showed them how to do 3 basic body paragraphs. That was context. Now for problem, Reed is now he's in 6th grade doing just fine. He's now learning how to do, instead of finding one quote, he's finding 2 quotes that we're doing per paragraph. And then I'm having him applying a warrant to 2 warrants to the body paragraph for each quote. Do any of you have any idea what a warrant is and apply to a body paragraph?
No.
Nobody knows what it is outside of PhD students.
Yeah.
Okay. And people ask me, what's a warrant? The problem that the craft of research has when you're writing body paragraphs, you see how a lot of students, even AP students, just write out a lot of facts? It's a way of turning those facts into an analytical discussion based on your premise. Okay. It looks simple, but it's a very complicated piece of writing idea. And I'm applying that to each of the quotes and then a few other steps. So Reed should have all this stuff done in the next couple of years. I'm thinking by the end of 7th grade, at which point his body paragraph writing ability will be at least the senior year of high school. He's going way beyond his classmates. Then I'm going to show him a modernized version of my original program, and then I'm going to show him solution. So I want you to imagine, I need a volunteer. What book do you remember from high school that everybody read and wrote papers on? Who's my volunteer?
It's already me. Well, I know The Outsiders. I remember reading The Outsiders.
Can you write something truly original academically on The Outsiders? Something teachers have never read before. something meaningful, completely original.
Completely, like from a different point of view of how the book.
From a different point of view that matters, that they've never read before, that's completely original. Nobody ever wrote like this before.
I
All
could
those
try
years.
really hard. I have a really great imagination, but the way you're asking the question, I probably should say no, but I'm trying to remember it, and I could probably pull something out,
Okay.
but it
Well,
would be very hard.
I reduced it to a formula, so it's not so hard. So every time you turn in a paper, it's completely original. Not at the
Wow.
high school level, we shoot for the graduate level. And for that, I do require for the first time that students use the $200 version of the artificial intelligence a month.
Wow.
Why am I doing that? Because if you want your kids to have a shot at getting a job now, and this just happened over the past few months, people aren't going to lose their jobs to AI. They're going to lose their jobs to other people who know how to work with the AI. So, for example, when they came out with a $200 version last December, I bought it that day. Now, in my typical day, when I'm doing about 4 hours of reading and writing and doing things, I have a $200 version, one going on the internet, because it takes 5 to 25 minutes to do anything, usually 10 to 15. I have one going on the app on my laptop, and then I'm using Sonic 4.5 to do emails. I'm doing 3 things at once. This is how I literally multiple X my productivity. All right. So let me give you an example of this. I had a client who I haven't worked with him since high school, went on to college, gets a job. He hates artificial intelligence, and I mean hates it. His boss loved it. He said, "Can any of you come up with anything original to help our division? And by the way, I'm not going to pay you for hours of work when the AI gets you to a first draft within 10 minutes." So he calls me in a panic. "I don't know what to do. I hate this. What do I do?" I said, "I've trained you in the craft of research. You've practiced in college for 4 years. Go and do context. Talk to the AI, type with it. I don't care. Figure it out." And as a dyslexic, 2.5 times a neuroactive, he figured it out. He comes back a few days later. I said, "Go do problem." He comes back a few days later. "I hate this." I said, "Welcome to the grown-up world." So then he goes and does solution. It's a little thing that they've been trying to solve for years, but just never worth the time. So it's like, okay, good, you get that. Within a week, he's training his peers in AI.
Wow.
Okay. Because you know the craft of research, I've shown you how to prompt engineer your brain. Not all this crazy, I don't do this incredible crazy stuff that everybody else comes up with. I talk to it. To me, AI is like a crazy dyslexic kid. Doesn't like to do what it's told. So sometimes, I learned this from, you might just find this funny. This was from a major podcast on AI. They said, if it's really misbehaving, tell it you're going to put it into a computer and ship it to Russia, to Siberia. Then it starts behaving. I'm not joking. It actually works.
Yep.
But
Hilarious.
but that's just how important this is. So while a lot of his classmates still haven't found a job, he's doing very well. And he says, "Yeah, I'm teaching AI. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but apparently they think I do." All right. And I hate this, but I got to use the damn thing. But that's how powerful the front part of the brain is.
So,
Love that.
Russell, is your writing method a modified version of the craft of research, or
Yes, it is very much a streamlined version of the craft of research. It is a way of doing it. I'm not saying it's the way or even the way they would like you to do it. It's a way of doing it. And what I found when I did my original program, when you're talking to AP Gen Ed kids, you want to show them how to do persuasive writing or legal writing or this type of writing, you got to show them each thing how to do it. With a dyslexic, once you get them up to grade level, they can pretty much do everything. Yeah. And they have to be brought up from there, but they can do anything once they get up, because we're so creative once we solve the issue. So I'm showing a way of doing it. I've had professors come and say, that is not the official way to do the craft of research. And I said, and I never said it was, but I'm showing solution to 17-year-olds. I'm showing context to 9-year-olds. Okay. I actually had one of my students go to one of his peers at a different university, and his peer was like, yeah, I didn't like how they're doing the craft of research. So I said, change X, Y, or Z. And the kid just went and did it. And so the rest of even my PhD students don't know what the heck it is. And it's really ticking me off. But I got this undergrad freshman who can pick it up faster than my doctoral kids. I said, yes, because I worked with her on it for 3 years.
So interesting.
Okay, so Russell, for our listeners who are curious about the writing method, where can they start? Are there simple tools, habits, or shifts that parents or educators can begin using right away to help someone with dyslexia?
Well, we went over the basic sentences, but generally, remember that I said you have to get the speciality down?
Yes.
I've tried explaining that to people. I've tried doing videos. I've tried believe it, everything I tried. It's hard. Let me just give you a quick example. One of my clients, he's 13. I'm just going to call him John. His speciality, and I'm not joking, I'm not judging, it's just kind of interesting. He loves chemistry videos, and his favorite one is how to take paint thinner and turn it into cherry soda.
You can
Okay?
do that.
Apparently you can. He said, oh, these are videos for kids in middle school. I checked it out. John, these are videos for college kids, and not just college kids, advanced college kids. Okay, so what I did is I went to ChatGPT Pro. I said, give me about 2,000 words where they're taking that. And I said, give it to me at the concept level of 12th grade second month and reading at 9th grade second month. Okay. And then he's using Speechify to read it to him, which was created by a dyslexic. So when you're trying to figure out what the speciality is, which really you need to do before you do anything else, best thing to do is just go to dyslexiaclasses.com. That's plural with an S, dyslexiaclasses.com with an S. And there's this button there that says download free guide. Just tap on it, fill out the few questions. You get a document, the 3 reasons your child's having trouble in school due to dyslexia. And then you actually need to go and set up a time with me on Zoom. So we'll spend a half an hour. I'll talk with your child, and I will find out what their speciality is. Is it a book and an audiobook, like Disney or like Theodore Roosevelt? Or am I going to have to come up with something original because they're interested in a video and turning paint thinner into cherry soda? Okay. And then I can find out how we're going to get if it's going to be Speechify, if we can get an audiobook, and if they like that. And then we can help you get started. But you got to make that appointment with me or I can't really help you.
Very cool. I completely, not really, well, I want to go a different direction here for a minute. Since dyslexia obviously involves the less dominant in the left brain, right, and more activity in the right, do you think that that also shapes how dyslexic people like yourself experience the world? Like, so just like Da Vinci, Einstein, Agatha Christie, and Picasso, who apparently had dyslexia, I just learned today, which was interesting, demonstrated deep intuitive insight that transcended linear thought. So making them more connected or spiritually attuned. Do you find you're more connected?
Yeah, we don't do linear thought. We just don't do that.
Okay.
No, I mean, literally, we are. Remember what I said? How we have to go from the specific to the general to force the brain to organize itself. Besides that, we don't do linear. We're scattered all over the place.
Okay.
So what that does, to give you an example, Edison was dyslexic. He said, I forget the number. I'm just going to use 4,000. He said, I didn't mess up 4,000 times on a light bulb. I just found 4,000 ways that didn't work.
Not do it, yeah.
So we try all these radical different ideas. And why is this so important? Because I want you to think about grad school. Remember when I said when dyslexics, when they walk into grad school, they own it day one? Because we've been practicing in this area for so long. Imagine John doing college level chemistry videos in 8th grade. Okay. Imagine if he goes for his doctorate. And they say, what can you, in PhD program, an original idea is the currency of the realm. All the rest of the stuff they don't care about, because if you couldn't figure it out, you wouldn't be there. If you're not an excellent student, you wouldn't be admitted. And that is so important. I have seen dyslexics for decades come up with something important to say, and then a gen ed person would come on and say, well, if I could be your co-author, I'll do all the work. And the dyslexic goes, sucker, it's so easy to come up with these ideas. And the gen ed student looked at the dyslexic and went, sucker, all I have to do is a lot of work, and then I get my name on a publication. It's completely different. So yes, we see the world very differently. Best way to put it in so it makes sense is to try to analyze a word, come up with a universal theme, and then discuss it by articulating. Try to force everything up here.
Very good. Thank you. Great.
Well, that kind of goes along with Tracey. I didn't know all those people were dyslexic for one, so that was really something. But my question is similar in the fact that it has to do with perception and influence. So, when people are diagnosed or they have a label, sometimes that they identify with that and they take that on. And that's their self-concept or something. So what I'm really curious about is, do you see your students identifying with that dyslexia as though it's something that is who they are, or do they separate who they are from what they are struggling with?
Well, the first thing is, when I'm dealing with a dyslexic, there are 3 levels that I'm starting off with. One are the super motivated kids who will go through anything. They don't care what the world thinks. They're ultra motivated and they will go through anything to help things out. The second one is very rare. They're the ones who'll say, I'll muddle through. The third one is where they're just shattered as a person. And they'll say, I'm dyslexic. I'm worthless. I can't do it. I'll never be anything, no matter how hard I work. And I was like, well, my dyslexia is worse than your dyslexia. No, it's not. Really? So then I sent on my neuropsych. And I said, my neuropsych wasn't done by some master's degree person. It was done by a senior professor. How do you read? And then we go into it and I get them back.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I have to find out. I said, no, you have a speciality where you're really good. And I said, let's go and try something. I have the parents come up with a big award that's something that they can afford, very important to the kid. And we'll look at their speciality. And like with Reed, it was Logan from X-Men. And we would have a competition. And I would say, Logan, I've been doing this for more than twice as long as you've been alive. Okay. Who's going to win? I'm going to beat you. Okay. And then we keep going until he does beat me legitimately. I said, yeah, look, you beat me on this little piece, and you're right. In this little piece, you're better than me. How do you feel now? Oh, by the way, we had you retested and you're above average. He was in the 65th percentile from reading, and his grammar, this is fun, went up to the 97th percentile.
Wow.
Okay. And we waited for that for him to go down in the summertime. And that was when he was tested inside the public school. His mom wasn't anywhere miles. It was miles away. All right. So then you get their self-confidence back. So when they're just completely defeated as the person, I have to pull them back. And I pull them back in their specialty. And what really drives them nuts is people. Are you guys under the impression that dyslexia is a reading problem?
I think most people are, but that's not correct.
That is completely incorrect.
Yeah.
It's a lack of organization in the front part of the brain. How do I know that? I went to study in Japan. This is a book they use at Harvard for college seniors, first-year master's students, okay? I know people probably have almost no interest in post-war Japanese history, but this article was written by Professor Dower, who won the Pulitzer and the National Book Award. I thought it was the easiest thing I read in my life. It turned the rest of the class dyslexic. They couldn't read it. All right. Do I have a volunteer? the show about dyslexia and reading. Do any of you three want to volunteer?
I will. Thank you.
Okay. How far did you go in your education?
I have a bachelor's in psychology.
Okay, fantastic. So I'm going to read you an article. Here's what it's titled: Peace and Democracy in Two Systems, External Policy, Internal Conflict by John W. Dower. Sounds exciting, doesn't it?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to read you a sentence. I simply want you to tell me what it says. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Ever since Japan's seclusion was ruptured by the Western nations in 1853, domestic and international politics have been interwoven for the Japanese. What does that mean, just in general?
Well, they're an island, and so they were pretty much isolationist or secluded, but then the policies, everybody got their nose in their business.
Okay, you got it. Next sentence. Slogans used to mobilize succeeding generations convey this interconnection. What does that mean?
I don't know. You'd have to repeat that sentence again.
Okay. Slogans used to mobilize succeeding generations convey this interconnection.
That meant propaganda, basically.
You got it.
Yeah.
One more sentence. Thus, the forces that eventually overthrew the feudal regime in 1863 rallied around the cry, "Revere the emperor, expel the barbarian."
So
what does that mean?
The barbarian, I imagine, was us, or those invaders, and the rallying cry, they were trying to retain their power through their system.
You got it. Now.
Well, she's dyslexic.
Nope.
No.
Okay, now I just add. Does this sound at all that difficult to you?
No, not really.
No. I mean, I just wanted generally would
Yeah.
it be a shock to you if I gave that first paragraph to a room full of reading teachers with master's degrees, and over half of them were completely befuddled, and the other third were like, "Yeah, what's this? This is no big deal." Does that make any sense to you?
Well, a little, because that
No, I mean,
I have
reading
follow-up
teachers
question to
can't
let you know.
understand what you just. Reading teachers can't
Yes.
do what you just did. They're not a little off. They're completely confused. Does that make any sense to you?
Well, no, because it shouldn't make sense to us, because we should ask for more. We should have higher standards of our teachers and our teachers and learners.
Oh, but these are teachers who are in the top 1% of their profession.
But it's
okay, let me explain to you. Yes, let me explain to you what's going on.
Okay.
I'm going back to the brains. So for you, imagine, you see that overactive front part and the overactive back part?
Yes.
That's you. You're what I call a full brain. So in effect, you're a full brain. You can do what I do. You can do what the AP English writers can do. You can do both.
Okay.
If you can't, you're a half a brain. I'm a half a brain. Okay. Problem is, when it comes to hiring people, I will literally give consultants, accountants, well into the six-figure jobs. And I'll tell them, if they can't read that article, don't hire them. Some of them have done tests. They said, the people that could read that like it was no tomorrow, excellent employees, really could do any complicated stuff. The ones that couldn't, horrible. We had to let them go within 3 to 6 months. So literally, if you want to, I can't do this with you, but for a lot of other adults, I can turn them dyslexic. And if they want to feel what it's like to be dyslexic, imagine if I said, if you couldn't read this, well, we're going to take your house away. How would you like to live in an apartment? You can't read it? We'll take your apartment away. How do you like being homeless? We'll take your car away. We'll take your money away. We'll take your kids away. Read. I don't care if you can't read. And they start getting ultra frustrated. I said, now imagine you're dyslexic and you're 6. That's what it feels like.
What this reminds me of is that this can really also apply, as you said earlier, I believe you talked about ADHD and neurodivergent. And I had a son who was not dyslexic, but he had a reading comprehension problem. And it's interesting because you talk about getting to know what they love.
Mm-hmm.
And that was how we got him to read. So this could be broader. I mean, this could be used in so many more ways with all of these different types of learners, is that he was able to get in, and his was dragons. So I was able to get
Mm-hmm.
him into any story with dragons. And then he became an avid reader. And not only that, today he's 35 and he has read thousands of books, and
Mm-hmm.
he is an avid reader. He reads them at 2 times the speed. He loves the audio versus the, reading. So I love that you've taken and been able to modify all of these brain, science backed things and put it together and kind of customized it for the way that the brain works. And it can be used for alternatives, I'm assuming, based on what you've said, neurodivergent, ADHD, etc.
Oh, yeah, but also I was just on a podcast with a young lady and her mom. I'm not going to use her real name. You can find it on Podmatch if you wish, but it's about AI and kids and teens specifically. And she's in ninth grade. I'm just going to call her Jill, which isn't her name. She's a standard AP kid. Okay. Her mom's in marketing and custom data. All right. And I said, okay, mom. So what you do is you take the ideas of marketing, their custom data, you have 2 points, you put them together and come up with something original. So I'm taking her daughter through this process and she's flying through it. She will take what took Reed 6 months. She'll probably do in about 3 hours. Okay. The dyslexics go much deeper. The AP kids fly through it. And why is she interested? Because I said, when we move on to the body paragraphs for problem, I'm showing you what a warrant is. And nobody knows what a warrant is. My kids will go to their teachers, very expensive private schools or top end public schools. Yeah, I'm going to learn what a warrant is for body paragraphs. Nobody knows. They call me like, what's a warrant? I said, it's in the craft of research. It's for PhD students. My I'm seventh grade. I said, well, yes, seventh grade. I even teach this to sixth graders. We have to accelerate. If I'm going to get these kids to be proficient at the craft of research before they're done with high school, so they can get a job, they need to go to college and practice for 4 years. Or if they're going to be auto mechanics, electricians, 2 years. That's a community college degree. I got to get them through that by the end of high school so that they actually can get a job. So when their boss says, if you can't use AI to do da, 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 I can't use you. And they say, yes, we can. Here's how. I've been doing this for years. Okay. I want them to end up employed. Ended up with a literate unemployed person, I considered I failed.
Yeah.
And I do look at that on a weekly basis. This morning, I spent an hour listening to podcasts just on the employment status with AI. Where's the little shift? Because I have to maintain the cutting edge of that because I need to modify my last course so I can ensure that these kids can, get a job. What I tell the ones that do get a job, I'm like, congratulations. You're going to get paid a heck of a lot more money over time. But I also tell them they have to become senior within 6 to 12 months. Normally, it would take like a decade to become senior. They got to do that in 1/10 to 1/20th of the time. And I say, here's how you do it. And you're not going to have fun for the next 6 to 12 months. But when you come out on the other end of this, ask for a really big raise. Because if not, somebody else will give it to you.
So to wrap up, Russell, what a beautiful conversation today. Thank you so much for sharing your insight and your heart with us, because clearly you could see this is something you're incredibly passionate about. And thank you for reminding us that our differences truly are our strengths. So any final words of wisdom, Russell? Can you tell our listeners also how to get in touch with you?
Again, just go, because I got to get you to find out what the speciality is. And it's just something I have to do. Just go to dyslexiaclasses.com, plural with an S, dyslexiaclasses.com. Click on download free report, fill it out, and then please go to Zoom and actually set up a 30-minute time with me. All right. If it takes more than 30 minutes, it takes more than 30 minutes. There's no cost. And then I'll help your child find out what their speciality is. Could be something as interesting as turning how to take paint thinner and turn it into cherry soda. No, I don't recommend you drink it. Okay. I'm just
No.
little hint out there. Find out, we get that set up so your kid knows what they want to do. But yes, like for example, they get one book.
Yeah.
And typically, yes, we're on that book for a couple of years. Okay.
Wow.
It's that simple. So just get in contact with me and let's see what we can do to not go through all the trauma and problems that you went through with your kids.
Yeah.
So nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, this really reinforces how powerful it is when we stop trying to fit everyone into the same mold, whether that's with learning, health, or healing, right? When we honor our differences, we unlock potential that's been waiting to shine. So thanks so much, Russell, for coming on and having this discussion today. It's been very eye-opening. Very, very cool.
Thanks for having me.
I agree. I love that even though we all can see differently and we can believe differently, we can learn how to do things our way. And we can all accept each other for these differences. And I love that you're going into the school system and really trying to make a change here, because that is so needed. We need to get kids from the beginning, and our school system has not done them any favors. This one size fits all, no changes, as you mentioned earlier, 1950s, whatever, stuck in back in time. It's just not working. And especially the AI you were talking about, we really do need to make some changes here. And I love that you're starting, and you're really starting to shake some trees with that. So thank you so much for sharing what you've been learning and your new writing method. And I hope that the people listening take advantage of that today and give you a contact.
Well, the stuff from the 1950s, I just want to let you know, you can't afford that because that's $75K a year to 4 to 5 years. Why haven't they changed it? I can tell you because I'm a reviewer for the International Dyslexia Association's annual conference. They're at changing a little vein in a leaf, a minimum amount. That's where they are with it. They're not taking the jump up to Yale's research. And by the way, this isn't exactly new. This came out 22 years ago.
Oh,
That's my
goodness.
field. By the way, my partner, she was on the dyslexia task force, is a teacher. We can go in to any school district, show them how to solve middle school reading and writing in about 3 hours. And the teachers can modify that to meet their teaching style who they're working with. It doesn't
Wow.
take years or months. We can do it in a matter of hours.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
And you know, the reason I ended up homeschooling is because my eldest went into the public school system, and then my first of the two dyslexic went into the system, got the same kindergarten teacher. And by spring, she pulled me aside and said, your son has learning differences. And she said, I'm being honest with you, we're going to lose him. He will fall through the cracks. He will not make it through on the other side. So she was the one that said, find alternatives. I'd never heard of homeschooling, so I found an alternative for my son, but she was honest. I mean, it was a teacher who was honest, right? You get, in Canada at least, the classrooms are 30 to 40 students large, and they teach phonetically and phonetically only. So if you have a child with dyslexia, a kinesthetic learner, they're going to be left behind because they don't have the time, the resources, or the training to help them even begin. So if you're saying you can go into the system and in 3 hours, it hurts my heart as an older person now, with my sons have grown up and I have grandbabies now, that they're not doing that. Like you said, like,
Oh, yeah.
it's
And let me,
sad.
if you're in the States, okay, there's this thing called the Americans with Disabilities Act. Actually, there are people in law firms ready to help you. The federal judge asked the school district, did you get the kid tested in kindergarten? Like, Yale says, no. Did you implement any of the recommended training programs from kindergarten through third grade? No. You are grossly negligent, not negligent, criminally, like grossly negligent. And then I'm just going to give you the school that I recommend to most anybody who's thinking about this, called the Gow School, GOW.org. It's next year, it'll celebrate its 100th anniversary. Boys and girls, 5th grade and above, cost over 80 grand a year. You can force the federal government, the federal government can force the schools to pay that for you. All right. And they will pay if you win. And not only that, they'll pay your attorney. The whole thing can cost over $1 million. And if the school says we're not going to pay, they send the federal marshals to the school district's bank. They pay. All right. Or they go to jail. But even if they did, how many of you would like to send your kids away to boarding school when they're in middle or high school? Any of you?
No.
No.
No. So even if you had the money, you don't want to do this.
Yeah.
So if you talk with me, I can show you how to do this. And I go way beyond that because, as I said, I use the craft of research. Why? Because the professors demanded it in 2006.
Wow. So, to our listeners, if this episode spoke to you, please like, share, or leave a comment on your favorite platform. Your stories and feedback help us reach more women and families who need to hear this message. So, remember, in a world where you can be anything, be happy, be healthy, and be kind.
Thanks for tuning in to the Happy Healthy Her podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to share it with anyone you think would benefit from the topics we're discussing. We'd love to hear from you. DM us with your thoughts, comments, or ideas for future episodes. And don't forget to check out the links in our bio if you'd like to connect with any of us or learn more about what we do. Until next time, remember, in a world where you can be anything, be kind, be happy, and be healthy.